One. What's up, guys? MLS Aces Podcast, episode 228. This is your host, Tom Sweezy, and I have a very special episode today. I'm actually super excited to have you guys listen to my interview today with the athletic reporter, writer, allocation disorder co-host Sam Stejskal. I'll dive a little bit into that in a little bit because we do have a lot of MLS US soccer news to talk about beforehand, but like I said, I'm super excited to get you guys to listen to that and watching that. But first off, have to run through the news, have to run through all these. A ton of, like I said, soccer news that's gone on in the past week. So I think first off, we always have to start off with congratulations, with celebrations, and let's celebrate the Vancouver Whitecaps on being the first MLS team to grab a 2023 CCL spot for this year. For next year. They defeated Toronto FC in the 2022 Canadian Championship final, 1-1 after regulation. And the Whitecaps, they won on PKs to defeat Toronto FC. Bernardeschi and Signe all played. Vancouver is like, I don't care. Brian White's the goal scorer, and we're going on to win our second trophy in our MLS era. So congratulations to the Whitecaps. I'm excited to see Brian White holding up the CCL trophy next season and have him just absolutely kill it. So no, seriously, congratulations to Brian, Lucas, Ryan, anyone else on that team for winning the Canadian Championship. It's awesome. Pretty much at this point, if you have played on a Canadian club in the past decade, you've won a trophy of some sort. You've been playing in CCL of some kind, and Vancouver doing that is just another amazing accomplishment for Cascadia, for Canadian soccer, and everything like that. I do want to give a quick shout out and some quick love to Ryan Raposo of the Vancouver Whitecaps. After I listened to his interview on MLS Today with David Goss and Susanna Collins, really got pumped for him in this one. Kind of wanted Vancouver to win. I know last week I introduced and opened up the podcast by saying I want to see Insigne and Bernardeschi and CCL next year. Very upset, still kind of upset that we're most likely not going to get that. Obviously, Toronto still can if they win MLS Cup, but I want to see the Italians play. But I'm super pumped for Raposo because if you don't know a little bit about his backstory, and I don't want to say it all or steal it all from MLS Today. So if you don't know the story, go back to MLS Today, listen to that awesome show. But Ryan Raposo was pretty much a Toronto FC Youth Academy product. He got let go from the academy and was told, not good enough, I guess. And now Raposo is winning trophies over his former youth team. So shout out Ryan Raposo, shout out the Whitecaps on being the first team to lock down a trophy this season for Major League Soccer clubs. Next, let's dive into the U.S. Open Cup, the other cup competition going on, obviously for American clubs. And we had the semis this past week. And I guess let's start off with the less fun one of the two. Obviously, if you guys pay attention to the Open Cup, I'm sure you can guess which one you think I think is more fun. But Orlando City kind of saving maybe what's going to end up being in just an average season for them. They went out, they defeated the New York Red Bulls 5-1 down in Orlando, a brace from Cesar Araujo, stud performances from Benji Micel, Joao Matinho, Robin Jansen. I think honestly, you can just list that entire back line, played very, very well in this one. And then the attack did their job, right? Like you scored 5 goals on a Red Bull team that has been very good defensively this year. And a lot of their main starters were playing in this one. And, at the end of the day, you absolutely killed it. You absolutely went out. You scored 5 goals, and you're on to your second final in your MLS era, looking to get your first trophy in your MLS era. So congratulations to the Lions on representing Major League Soccer in the U.S. Open Cup final, and they will be the only representative of Major League Soccer in the U.S. Open Cup final because we had another cup set. Sacramento Republic FC defeated Sporting Kansas City in penalties to advance to the Open Cup final. Absolute mess from Sporting Kansas City. The opportunities they had, the shots on goal they had, they could not get the ball in the back of the net. Uncharacteristic mistakes from Daniel Shallowy, Johnny Russell, and the rest of the team there allowed Sacramento to stay in the game. Sacramento, which is more of a defensive squad, they play a little bit more defensive in their back five. got up into the attack a little bit more than usual, but at the end of the day, 0-0 after regulation. We go into PKs. We get goals on both ends. I think the moment of the PKs was Malik Foster from Sacramento Republic, his Panenka, his, good night, Steph Curry. Loved it. I absolutely loved it. The first ever signing in Sacramento Republic FC history, Rodrigo Lopez, Roro Lopez, as Charlie Davies called him. He hits the final penalty kick to send Sacramento to the Open Cup final. It's just an absolute Cinderella fairy tale story. I love it. If you're a U.S. soccer fan in general, you love it. I guess if you hate USL, then you hate it. But it's awesome to see, whether it's the U.S. Open Cup, whether it's the FA Cup. You'll love to see cup sets, and this is another one. So here we have it. We have a U.S. Open Cup final set in September. We have Orlando City, like I said before, making their second ever appearance in a cup final, or a final in any type of sort for their MLS era. They will be taking on Sacramento Republic FC, who, it's almost poetic because they were the USL club, the town, however you want to call it, that had the MLS club. They had the future expansion rights. They got it taken away when that ownership group kind of backed out of everything within the organization there. They are going to be the first non-MLS team since 2008 to make a U.S. Open Cup final. That was the Battery playing DC United back in 2008. And they're going to be looking to be the first non-MLS club to win the U.S. Open Cup final since 1999, when the Rochester Rhinos defeated the Colorado Rapids. So Sacramento Republic looking to do something in the MLS era that hasn't happened often, if at all. You know what I'm saying? So I'm super excited about this one. Part of me is rooting for Sacramento Republic FC because, again, you just like to see the underdogs win and succeed, and it would be an amazing storyline for Rodrigo Lopez to be the first ever signing for this team and go out and win a trophy with this club and do something that USL clubs don't do in the MLS era. But then at the same exact time, Orlando City, it would be great for them to lock down their first ever, MLS era trophy. They obviously had Stejskal back in their own USL days. You want to see it now, obviously, with the steps that they're looking to take moving forward in their club's history. Also, it would be pretty awesome to see Alexandre Pato raising the U.S. Open Cup title, locking down the biggest trophy of his career, obviously. But let's move forward into some signings, some moves that have been popping off in this transfer window. Obviously, DC continue to make moves underneath this brand new Wayne Rooney era. Last week I talked about Miguel Berry and Ravel Morrison coming in underneath Wayne Rooney's, I guess, his first initial signings for DC. Now they add in Victor Paulsen and David Ochoa. Paulsen coming over from Schalke, and Ochoa, obviously, if you're an MLS fan, coming over from Real Salt Lake. The move I want to talk about, obviously Paulsen, he's a force. He has a ton of European experience. He's won the 2 Bundesliga. I think he's won a Swiss Super Cup as well. He's going to be a great addition. He's going to be a starter for this midfield underneath Rooney. But I want to talk about David Ochoa because the move in itself is so interesting because it's so unique and it's a special situation. So Ochoa comes over from RSL for $75,000 in general allocation money, which is it's nothing, right? We see moves happen for more that I think the talent of those players don't even touch a guy like David Ochoa. The DC will have to send over an additional $300,000 if he re-signs with the club moving forward into the future. If DC do sell him on outside of Major League Soccer, RSL does have a 25% sell-on fee as well. All of that coming from Tom Bogert. So thank you, Tom, for being a consistent source out on there on Twitter for me to get this information from. But the interesting part here is obviously David Ochoa has not played for RSL in 2022 after what he saw in his kind of explosion and his come out in the 2021 season as their starting goalkeeper. Issues going on in training, and we've seen Ochoa even coming out on his own Instagram saying that he's not allowed to train with the first team. And I think he's made 2 or 3 appearances for RSL, for Real Monarchs, their MLS Next Pro club. So obviously a huge falling out with Ochoa and with RSL. Michele Giannone and I talked about it a few episodes ago. So if you guys want to hear a little bit more in depth of maybe what happened, go back to that episode and definitely give that a listen, because Michele definitely had some very good insight into the David Ochoa situation, and obviously Zach McMath's excellent play for RSL in 2022. But Ochoa, he's a free agent this winter, so DC will have a pretty interesting offer on their plate if they want to offer him pretty much the starting job, because at the same exact time, longtime DC goalkeeper Bill Hamid will be a free agent as well. So Hamid can almost pick his destination for 2023. Maybe DC wants to move on from Hamid in this new Wayne Rooney era. I'll say it for a fifth time. Maybe Ochoa is the future there. Ochoa did have some interest outside of Major League Soccer in Mexico, over in Europe, again, all according to reports from Tom Bogert. So maybe Ochoa's like done with MLS and he wants to take his next steps and he wants to move on, and even promise the starting goalkeeper spot with DC isn't enough to keep him here. It'll all be really interesting to see kind of how it unfolds and how it plays out there for Ochoa, DC, and everything like that. The next, I guess, big move that I want to talk about does actually involve Liga MX in Mexico, and Josie Altador being loaned to Liga MX side Puebla from the New England Revolution. Obviously, Altador had his ugly end to his Toronto FC time, or only a few months ago at this point. Obviously, a few injuries and a few surgeries. Now he had his fight when New England was going up against New York City FC. He wanted to get on the field. He took off his boots. He had to fight with the coaching staff. Apparently things got squashed, but really a lack of minutes with New England, really, unsuccessful performances with New England in Major League Soccer. And I think this honestly might be the best deal for all parties. New England get to move on from Josie Altador, and I know it's a loan deal, but I wouldn't expect and can't even imagine to see him back in a New England Revolution uniform, unless maybe he talks to Bruce and things get worked out for 2023. I'm not too sure. So I think for New England, it's a win there. For Josie Altador, I think it's a win because he gets to go be a CONCACAF legend down playing in Mexico, down playing for a club in Puebla that have had USMNT stars before. DeMarcus Beasley and Hercules Gomez, I think, are the two USMNT players who have played for Puebla before. And, we saw it with Landon Donovan when he went to go play for Lyon. CONCACAF stars do well in Liga MX, speak just off the field and on the field. And I think Josie Altador could be a guy who, if given consistent minutes in Liga MX, could score goals. I think he will be successful. I hope he's successful. I want to see him score goals. And just going back to a little bit of the Josie Altador that we know and love as USMNT fans, as he is a USMNT legend. Obviously there is the hope that he scores 15 goals and Greg Berhalter almost has to call him in for Qatar. I don't think it's going to happen. I don't really think it's a fair conversation to have. David Goss has definitely laid that out, that it's not a fair conversation, I think, to lay out there. Sometimes you just got to let legends be legends and move on from that point. So I'm hoping for Josie's success. I want to see him succeed. I just don't think it's a totally fair conversation to have about him somehow getting back into the USMNT picture. Speaking of USMNT, Chris Richards, he was sold from Bayern Munich to EPL side Crystal Palace. The deal was a reported roughly $15 million sale from the Bundesliga giants to Crystal Palace. FC Dallas had a 40% sell-on fee for Richards at Bayern Munich. So of that roughly $15 million, Dallas will get an additional $6 million on top of the original $1.25 million that they got for him in the sale to Bayern. So FC Dallas making out like villains in this one, just absolutely stealing money from Bayern Munich on this. The USMNT legend, Josie's the legend, the USMNT center back. Obviously, he's fighting for minutes for the upcoming Qatar World Cup. I think many people are penciling him in next to Walker Zimmerman as the starting center back. I don't know if that's 100% the case, but Richard should definitely be in the World Cup squad. for the USMNT. So we'll see. Hopefully he can get starting minutes and just get minutes in general for Crystal Palace, because getting EPL minutes is not going to be bad for a USMNT defender center back at any kind there. Another, I guess he's not officially a USMNT Cats player, but maybe the big deal, the big news of today, August 2nd, is Gaga Slonina sold from the Chicago Fire to Chelsea. Obviously, this has been a highly reported move, highly reported deal. I talked a little bit about this deal with Ezra Hendrickson, the Fire manager, a few episodes ago. If you guys did not check out that episode, I kindly ask you to go check out that one as well. It was a great conversation. This was obviously before anything was official, but Ezra definitely did hint at some things that have come to fruition with this deal. This is going to be a club record sale for a fee that will go up to potentially $15 million. There's going to be a sell-on fee as well for the Fire. He will remain with the Chicago Fire until January for the remainder of the 2022 MLS season. So Fire fans, you guys get Gaga for a few more months. And obviously, it's good for Gaga. He'll get playing time. Then he gets to go over to Chelsea, where, I don't know. I don't expect him to be on the Chelsea roster. If you ask me, I expect him to get loaned out almost immediately. But maybe some time to train with Thomas Tuchel in the club before getting loaned out. I'm not exactly sure, but it's honestly just a huge deal to see another American go playing at a huge club, one of the best clubs in the world, getting sold there. And he's a teenager. Like, this kid has such a bright future. He's done so well in such a short amount of time. And I'm so stoked to see what the rest of his career is going to look like. This is going to open up the door for another young, talented American teenage goalkeeper in Chicago, Chris Brady. So definitely keep an eye out for the Fire pipeline, I guess, of goalkeepers in the next few years. But that's it. Let's go right into my interview. I spoke with the Athletic reporter, writer, Sam Stejskal, also the co-host of Allocation Disorder, which is now strictly on the Athletic and an Athletic podcast. So congratulations to Sam on that. Really, we talk about Taty to Girona. We talk about kind of just LAFC roster construction. We almost talk about how to cheat the system on constructing your roster. So Sam gave me a ton of information on that, and interesting information that I think I'll use for future just thought processes around Major League Soccer. Luis Suarez, his actual chances that he was actually going to come to Major League Soccer, I didn't really think too highly on it, but we chat a little bit about that. Sam's opinion on the new MLS media rights deal for the future. Very interesting take from Sam. I kind of agree with him after this, so definitely take a look at that. And then also stay until the very end, because Sam tells a fun story about how Andrew Wiebe and Michele Giannoni almost kill him in a bar. So definitely stay for the entire interview. Guys, thank you so much for listening to another episode. Definitely go out and check out some of the past episodes if you haven't. A lot of interesting content, conversations there. And I'll catch you next week. We are back with another episode of the MLS Aces Podcast. This is your host, Tom Sweezy, and this week I'm joined by a special guest. You know this man's writing and his reporting from The Athletic. You know his voice from the fantastic Allocation Disorder podcast, and it's an honor to have him here on his first cap for the MLS Aces Podcast. Sam Stejskal. Sam, how are you, man?
I'm doing well, Tom. Thank you for having me on.
No, it's an absolute pleasure. Huge fan. I'm excited to finally get the chance to speak with you for the first time. But I know we don't have a bunch of time today, so I'm not going to, go through too much of the fancies here. Let's dive straight into it for the fans, for the listeners, and everything like that. And my first question is less soccer related. It's more your kind of profession, and I guess what you do on a daily basis, right? I was chatting with Tom Bogert about 2 or 3 weeks ago at this point. Yeah. And I asked him if he was on the, Adam Schefter, 2 cell phones plan yet of being a reporter.
I think Tom might be at this point.
He said he was close. So he's like, I need it at this point. But I guess, how do you handle the daily reporting, news scoops? Yeah. Let's write, let's talk with which GM, let's talk with which source, whatever it may be.
So I've sort of pulled back from that 2-phone lifestyle. Not that I ever had 2 phones for reporting. I have had 2 phones, but that's for other jobs and stuff at different points in my life. Just because it's exhausting. I don't know, Tom, if you've seen any of the recent articles that have come out about Adam Schefter or Shams Charania or, Adrian Wojnarowski over the years. But these guys, more power to them. They're getting paid.
Yeah.
They're making a ton of money. They're dominating the game. They're doing a great job. But it's a grind, and it's not really one that I want for my personal life,
Yeah. For your
like that
mental health
work-life
too, I'm
balance, my
sure.
mental
Yeah.
health, all that stuff. So, I obviously jump in and break some news here and there.
Yeah.
I am not chasing after every little scoop like I sort of used to when I was kind of more trying to be on the come up
Yeah.
and secure a full-time job and health insurance and all that good stuff.
The stuff you need in life.
So, but thankfully the Athletic is a really cool company to work for in that way.
Yeah.
And they really prioritize storytelling. And so, especially now it's summertime, right? We're all trying to enjoy life a little bit.
Yeah.
I'm trying to just kind of pull back and say, all right, maybe focus less on the what and focus more on the how or the why or the who in telling a personal story of a player or a coach or a figure. So I'm trying to do more of that and maybe a little bit less of the breaking news. But then again, there is a time and a place for everything. And I think it's important, we all get kind of excited about the transaction.
Yeah.
But
let's
a lot
talk
of
about
times,
the depth into that, I feel like.
but a lot of times the transactional breaking news, it's going to be announced in a press release 10, 15 minutes later or a day later or whatever. There is still breaking news out there that if you didn't break it, it would never see the light of day. And that stuff I think is more interesting and sometimes a lot more important to report.
Okay. I mean, like, I can agree with that, right? Like, I think there's a time and a place for like I got the news, I want to share it, right? If it's like something like Insigne going to Toronto, like you want to be like, I got that first because that's huge. But I think that, where you are, at least this is what I'm getting, correct me if I'm wrong, where you are now in, being able to story tell and kind of give details to the story and really just break it down more as I don't know, more in your writing, maybe less than like putting out a 30 character tweet real quick is more important to you right now.
Yeah, definitely. I'm trying to get off Twitter as much as I can. I'll never leave while I'm in this job, of course, but man, staying logged off as long as possible.
Yes.
That's kind of my new goal. So
Got it.
We'll see how it goes. I'm sort of in week 2 of this experiment. So far, so good, but we'll see.
Well, I get it because I think, again, going back to the mental health thing, sometimes Twitter is just an absolute cluster. Just an absolute cluster for sure.
It's crazy.
But let's dive into the soccer. Obviously, I wanted to initially say like 2 weeks, but it's probably been about a month, 6 weeks, 2 months now of MLS US soccer news and what's going on and off the field has just been insane from what Toronto's doing, the Taty news, USMNT players, and then obviously we have Cup finals going on yesterday, Cup semifinals today. We're in the middle of the MLS season. Qatar's coming up in a few months. This is just like I feel like one of the craziest years that we've had in a few years. Maybe that's recency bias, and we can say that every year.
I don't think it is. The national team angle, I think, throws just a lot extra on top of what we normally have every year, So
no, I get that for sure. But I as personally, I'm an NYCFC fan, and I want to selfishly start with Taty and talk about that. You dropped an article, I think it was a few days ago. You put out a piece on The Athletic that obviously, if you're listening or watching, please go subscribe, check it out, Sam. Your work is amazing on there that I was diving into. I mean, personally, I'm not a huge fan of the loan move to Girona. I will say it. I'll say it. So
let me ask you a question. Yes. Why are you not a huge fan of it?
I look back to the Jack Harrison deal, right? Because that's the other major NYCFC transfer that stands out to me. And yes, it was a transfer to Man City technically with a loan. So NYCFC at least got to profit initially off of that. I understand that NYCFC wasn't getting the 15 million for Taty that they feel that they deserve or that he's worth, whatever it may be. So I get the gamble aspect, but I guess as a fan, I'm happy to see Taty get the move, but then I'm also like, I want to see my club profit in some way off someone who could argue is the greatest striker in the last 2-3 seasons that we've seen in in Major League Soccer. He's won it all. What else has he left to prove? I know it's maybe just kind of pushing it down the road to get the cash, but I don't know. we're living in a clickbait. We want to see who dropped the news first. I want the cash right away first, I guess.
Well,
So that's
Tom, you're not getting that cash regardless.
I know.
So
I know. I wish.
Yeah, no, I know. I hear you. You want to kind of be in the headlines in a big way for your team, right? And that makes sense, and I get it. And I think NYCFC would have preferred to do it that way. They just didn't get the valuation that they thought they were going to get, and or the money they thought they were going to get. They put that $15 million valuation on Castellanos. That was the target that they wanted, and nobody was willing to pay. And at least according to them, according to what David Lee has told me and others. And so because of that, right, you do this loan thing. And that's facilitated by City Football Group and the shared membership they have there with Girona, which could help. But you mentioned the gamble aspect. It is a gamble, right?
It is.
It could backfire in theory, right? Castellanos could get hurt.
Yeah.
He could go to Girona and do terribly, and his value could tank. And then a year from now, you're in a weird spot where do you bring him back? Do you try and move him elsewhere for $5 million?
Yeah.
Like what happens then? NYCFC is pretty confident that won't be a position that they're in. Injury obviously would be outside of anybody's control, and let's all knock on wood and hope that doesn't happen, because that would be unfortunate for everyone. But they're really, really confident in Castellanos. They think that he's going to go over there and do well and raise his value, and then that they'll be able to sell him for more than 15 million in a year. And, I mean, Tom, you've obviously watched a lot of Taty as an NYCFC fan. I've seen a lot of him. I'm confident in him too.
I'm very confident.
I don't think that's an unreasonable stance for them to take.
No, it's not, right? Like, I get it. I understand it from the larger, let me step out of the fan mindset. I think Taty fits into most systems globally, and I think that his ability he's still only 23, right? 23,
he'll be 24 in October.
Okay. I think, at his age, right, he still fits into many clubs' plans, and I feel like he's going to go on to have a great career. There's always the New Yorker pessimistic side of me. I'm a Knicks, Jets, Mets fan. I've seen just downfalls of sports my entire life. So my brain immediately goes to, what if he goes to La Liga, sucks, and then he comes back to NYCFC? Is he going to come back? Like, what goes on there? So that's my only concern.
That's fair. I would say that NYCFC already is out of that Knicks and Jets and Mets group.
You should have seen me celebrating right over there a few months ago. I was going nuts. My fiance hates me at this point.
So yeah, I don't know. I mean, there's the potential that it could backfire, but I have more confidence in Castellanos to go over there and do well than I do in a lot of these guys that have made moves. But it is interesting, right? We look at Ricardo Pepe. He went for a fee that could go for up to 20 or 18. I can't quite remember off the top of my head. Daryl DK went for 9.5. Adam Buxa went for 10. And I'm sure they could have sold Castellanos for 9.5 or 10. But I think there is something of like an American element here, where the young American kid, especially this past winter, transferred at really kind of an inflated value for a few different reasons. I think we saw that with Pepe. I think we saw it with Paredes, maybe, although I'm a little more confident in what he's going to be able to do. And I think part of that is kind of the American owners in Europe. I think we saw it with Busio last year.
Yeah.
And so I think if Castellanos was maybe 2 years younger, and instead of being from Argentina was from, New Jersey, maybe NYCFC would have got that number.
Is there a chance that it was also possibly best loan deal for Taty because he could be pushing for a very borderline roster spot for Argentina in the World Cup? Or is that
I haven't even thought about that, honestly. That'll be a surprise. But
I don't think so, but I've seen people kind of mulling the idea over.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. It should be a relatively smooth transition as far as moving to Europe goes for him. Obviously, there's a lot of off the field stuff involved with that, but moving from one CFG club to another, they're going to be extremely familiar with him and the way he's been trained and the way he's been developed and the system that he's played in New York. And so they should be able to help kind of bring him along in those ways. So from that standpoint, it should be able to kind of help him hit the ground running right away. But we'll see how it goes. It'll be an interesting test case. It'll be fun to watch over the next in Spain.
From the larger MLS fan in me, it'll be fun to definitely watch. But let's shift coasts. Let's go to LAFC, where obviously there's a lot of news coming out. Gareth Bale, Chicho Arango, is he on the chopping block or not? And then obviously what we've seen with the words, Ernst Tanner really kind of coming out and just being curious about how all this is possible. Is that is that an honest, fair question from Ernst to be like, how the hell are they doing this? Like, it seems very curious, especially with the trades and all that.
I suppose it depends on your definition of fair. Is it reasonable? Yeah, I think it's reasonable. Like, is it fair to put it out in public without any evidence? Probably not. Is it something that if Ernst wanted to call the league and say, hey, what's going on here? Have you guys properly vetted this? I think that would be within bounds.
Okay.
But yeah, throwing it out there in public and causing a little bit of a firestorm, at least in MLS terms. It was good for me, it's good for content. But if I was LAFC, I'd probably be like, what the hell, man? Like, what are you doing? So I think it's fair because of what we saw with Miami. And because of what we've seen with other deals in the past.
Yeah, totally.
But the thing about it is if you want to cheat in MLS, you can, and you can do it legally. Like Zlatan is a good example. Like they paid him $1.5 million in year one on a 1-year contract. And then it was 7 or 7.5 or whatever it was in year two. And then he leaves the Galaxy, and literally 2 weeks to the day from his little announcement where he's up in the Hollywood Hills and illustrated like a lion or whatever it was that he did. It's announced that he has a 50% stake in AEG Sweden that he's bought. We have no idea how much he bought it for. He might have bought it for its proper market value. He might have bought it for $1, right? And there's all sorts of rumors that swirl around about sponsorship deals, and maybe he wouldn't have gotten certain sponsorship deals had he not gone to the Galaxy that he ended up getting. But the thing is, it's legal to do that if you're in MLS. It's not allowed. So if you want to make up finances for some guy on the back end, you can, and you can do so legally. Miami just did it. So, blatantly. Not only was it brazen and ridiculous, but it was dumb. It was so dumb. Like, you don't have to cheat like that. You can get away with it without breaking any rules.
Exactly.
So Gareth Bale's option, I'm sure it's gigantic for him to become a DP next year. I'm of the opinion and the belief that, he's not getting paid above the TAM threshold this season. I don't think there are any secret offshore bank accounts or anything. I don't think we're in a Blaise Matuidi situation.
No ownership stakes in any clubs down the line.
Well, maybe. Maybe. But like, that's allowed. Like, as long as it's not, written down or agreed to beforehand, right? You can do whatever after he leaves. So,
I love this league. I really do. Like, when we talk about it in this sense, like, I love it because obviously in the past we talk about GAM, TAM, all that stuff. No one knows how it works really. You do, but now we're getting into like this case where it's like there is a lot of stuff that people don't talk about where you can motivate players to come. You can pay players on the back end,
And the other part is like it's totally feasible that Gareth Bale, who has made hundreds of millions of dollars, that money is not his main motivator at this point.
100%.
Maybe he just wants to live in Los Angeles. Like, maybe that's it. Plenty of people want to live that life.
Live in LA, golf a little bit, and play some soccer.
A lot even.
Golf all you want as long as you're not on a soccer field or training, and you're good. And I totally get that. I guess just quick, fan point of view from you. LAFC, they have to be the clear favorite to win it all this year.
Yeah, I think so. But funny things happen in the playoffs all the time.
100%.
Single elimination. They were the big favorite in 2019 too. And Seattle went down there and played a brilliant kind of sit and counter game and took it to them and won 3-1. So that's kind of the beauty of MLS. The league has all of these ways in which they try to enforce isn't the right word. Manufacture competitive balance or parity, and they don't need them because you only need one. And you have it. It's a single elimination playoff.
I love
Weird things happen, any given Sunday, right?
I mean,
That's
look,
what's going on
honestly,
here.
one random Emmanuel Reynoso bounce, one random,
Yeah,
red card in an El Tráfico playoff game, and LAFC are out of it. You're right, and
exactly.
that's the beauty of Major League Soccer. Um, I guess super quick question on this one: was there any real shot of Luis Suarez actually coming to Major League Soccer, or is that just all kind of built
Yeah,
up?
from what I understand, well, I shouldn't say was there any real shot. Yeah, if somebody wanted to pay him
Yeah.
$12 million, that's the
Mhm.
number I've heard. It's 12
Okay.
million.
Okay.
Um, then yeah, there would have been a
Yeah.
real. I don't think anyone wanted to pay him that.
Yeah.
So there wasn't. All the smoke and all the noise about LAFC and Seattle. I don't think it was ever that serious.
Hmm.
From what I was told, Seattle did talk to him. But Nico Ladero and him are very good friends. Their
Yeah.
families are close. They go way, way, way back. And so, you have that connection. Of course you would ask. But they also have 3 designated players. So it's, hey, Luis, want to come on a Gareth Bale contract? Want
Yeah.
to come for $1 million for the rest of the year?
Do you want part ownership in the Sounders
Yeah,
after,
and it's
Yeah.
like, no, okay, cool. Well, like, have fun at Nacional. And then the Sounders had, of course, his discovery rights, or still
Yeah.
do, presumably, in MLS, even though he's going down to Uruguay.
Really glad that they discovered him.
Yeah, and I don't think any other team made a serious run
Okay.
at getting those discovery rights from Seattle, which they would have had to have done in order to sign Suarez. But can you imagine, an instance, let's say LAFC was willing to pay him as a
Mhm.
designated player because they have that open DP spot, right? And Seattle holds his discovery rights and they cannot offer him a designated player contract because they already have 3.
Yeah.
So can you imagine LAFC says, hey, we want his discovery rights. Seattle then, because they can't offer him his market value, the league can step in and say, you have to trade the discovery rights for
Really?
$50,000 in GAM. Yeah, that's kind of how this process
Okay.
works.
Okay.
That's all public, by the way. It's
Yeah.
on the MLS site. And and Seattle can be, okay, so we're doing our thing where we have a tough first half, but we're going to make a run and then hopefully try and win MLS Cup. And you want us to give maybe the favorite in the league, the team that's our top competition,
Yep.
perhaps. You want us to give up the rights to Luis Suarez for what amounts
50,000.
to a second round draft pick.
Yeah.
You want us to torpedo our own season? It would have been a fascinating thing to watch play out.
And I mean, it's just, again, I keep saying it, the craziness and this small details of how transactions are held within Major League Soccer just make the league that much more special, because if that happens and all these stories start coming out, you start writing pieces about that, I'm sure Seattle fans would be livid. I'm sure it would just be another just spiral of Major League Soccer being Major League Soccer, but the reason why we love talking about it, I guess. But
yeah, I mean, it adds drama for sure.
it does 100%. I don't want to hold up too much of your time, so I have 2 listener questions for you, and then maybe one more question from me if we can sneak it in.
I'll try and be concise.
No, all good. Answer as long as you possibly want. I have one question from Vaughn Pullman. He says, does the new media rights deal provide enough for the league's growth over the next 10 years? And he had a second follow-up to that. And when does Don Garber step down and make room for Commissioner Nuhu to lead us into MLS 5.0?
The first one, does it provide enough? I mean, no, I guess.
Yeah.
That said, I don't think there wasn't a better offer on the table. It wasn't like they eschewed something. They didn't really have much.
Mhm.
And Apple came in. It's a lot on the front end, right?
Yeah.
So it's not going to be 250 million in year one, but the average annual value is 250
Is what
million.
it yeah.
So we'll just call it 250. Will that payment is a lot at the beginning of this deal for what MLS is worth. At the end, 10 years from now, I mean, who knows what the sports media rights landscape is going to look like? If you wind it back 10 years, and this is kind of there's probably not a lot of crossover between these two fan bases, but college football is kind of a good example because they're dealing with a lot of this stuff right now with conference realignment.
Yeah.
So the Atlantic Coast Conference, right? So Florida State, North Carolina, Miami, those schools, they have something called a grant of rights agreement that basically it means they can't get out. And they have a TV deal that is under market now, and it runs through 2036. Jeez. So all of these other conferences that already have better TV deals, like the Big Ten and the SEC, right? They're going to sign and re-sign TV deals like 2 or 3 times before 2036. They're already bringing in more money than the ACC. What are they going to do when they're re-signing in 2032? It's going to be like quintuple, quadruple, whatever. So MLS, it's sort of the same story. When you do it on a per team basis, right? Because you look at that 250 million, it's a lot of money, but MLS is going to have 30 teams pretty soon.
Yeah.
So when you do it on a per team basis and what they're bringing home, I saw something out there. I can't remember who it was from, and I can't remember exactly, but MLS basically ranks right now, if you include that 250 million, if that starts, next season, they'll be like right around Portugal and the Netherlands on a per team revenue basis from their domestic television rights.
Yeah.
Like that's not like where you want to be if you're MLS.
You
Those
want
are
to be
small countries, right? And like the leagues are popular there, but they're not huge, right? It's not Big Five. And so if that's where you are now, where are you going to be in 10 years?
Is that where again, I'm going back to me being a Mets fan. Like I think of like Robinson Cano or someone like that getting a 10-year deal and eventually just kind of like, it's just not worth it towards the last stretch of the second half of the contract, right? Like it's just like Major League Soccer, it's my words, not your words, almost got screwed in this deal, or they got screwed in this deal because of the longevity of that's going to be a second World Cup from now as well.
But the thing is like that's the trade-off for getting the 250 million up front. Now in 2023, they had to give years on the back end.
True.
And they didn't really have another partner. So John Skipper, who used to run ESPN and now runs the company that Dan Le Batard is running, or the face of, he was on the Le Batard show talking about some of this college football stuff. And he's bought rights for everything when he was in charge of ESPN, including MLS.
Yes.
And one of the things that he said that is really stuck with me is with sports rights, you overpay on the front end, and on the back end, you get a great deal. And that's what this is for Apple, I think.
Okay. And Apple's definitely stepping into the sports rights deal everywhere, right? The NFL, they have their deal there. They're going to be able to
get
pay
Sunday ticket. Yeah,
exactly. And I think there's going to be a lot of positives from this deal for Major League Soccer, the wraparound show and everything like that. But
10 years is a long time.
Exactly. We'll leave it at that there. And any news on Nuhu stepping into the commissioner role?
Well, I think Nuhu still has quite a few years left in his career, so we don't need to rush that. Regarding Garber, it's an interesting question. Some people sometimes bring it up to me from around the league, and not that they have any insight into it necessarily, but they're kind of wondering the same thing.
I don't see him stepping down for a long time.
I mean, he's not a young man. He's, I think, mid-60s. He has had, he's dealt with cancer in the past. He's made plenty of money. So, I don't think he's necessarily looking to stick around forever. But I think getting the league to 30 teams, maybe 32, and getting the league to the World Cup or maybe even through the World Cup in 2026 would be a natural kind of exit point for him.
Okay. Fair. The second listener question that I have comes from maybe a friend of yours, Michele Giannone. He said, "Were you?" Well, I guess.
Oh boy, where is this going?
I'll ask the question from my point of view, not Michele's point of view.
Okay.
Were you trying to kill Michele with the drink that you gave him at a bar in Kansas City? He also says, I quote, "I love you, Sam."
Was I trying to kill him? A little, yeah, a little. So I'll tell the backstory really fast. So we were in Kansas City for the USA Uruguay game. We were at a bar with Andrew Wiebe, actually, from MLS Soccer, and I was texting a friend who grew up outside of Kansas City, who doesn't live there anymore. He lives in Salt Lake. And I'm like, hey, I'm in Kansas, like blah, blah, blah. Like, what's up, man? It's been a while. And he's like, where are you? and I'm like, I'm actually in Missouri. I'm in Kansas City. And he's like, where? And so I tell him the name of the bar. And he's like, cool. At a wedding, just ended, 3 blocks away from you. I'm coming over.
Coming now.
Yeah. And I haven't seen this guy in like 5 or 6 years. Haven't talked to him in 2 or 3. And so he comes over. And when we hung out, when I used to live in Salt Lake, we would drink this drink that is, it's like anyone from Chicago will know what I'm talking about. It's called Malort. It's terrible.
Okay. Yeah.
And so like this guy, he comes, he's like, let's do some Malort. And like, I turn to Michele. He has no idea what Malort is. And And we're like, all right, Michele, you're going to do this. And we go to the bartender. Hey, do you guys have any Malort? And he says, no, I have something worse. And we were like, you liar.
Yeah, like nothing's worse than that.
And so he gave us, whatever it was. I don't think it was worse. It wasn't good though.
Okay.
And so yeah, Michele, he struggled. It was a rough one for him.
And I've had Malort a few times in my life, but I mean, I couldn't imagine anything worse. No, it's awful, but it makes me appreciate the Andrew Wiebe extra time Malort jokes just a little bit more from that story. So thank you, Sam.
No problem.
Last question, and you can rapid fire. Give me a 1-word answer if you want. There's been a lot of USMNT transfers that have been going on this past month, right? Which one do you feel like is maybe as close to a perfect fit as possible for a player going into the World Cup?
Ooh, close to a perfect fit as possible.
For me, I'll give you some time to think. For me, I kind of had it down between Aronson and Adams just to get as much playing time as possible playing in what is a better league. That might be the easy answer, but that was just my thinking process of getting more playing time. You're playing under, Jesse Marsh, a guy who they're both familiar with. They're playing in the EPL. Might be good optics heading into a World Cup.
I think those are good candidates, both of them. I think Leeds' style fits both of them and how they want to play. I do question sort of how they're going to maybe adapt to the physicality, not from an athleticism standpoint. Those guys can both run at an insane level. But with Aronson in particular, guys in the EPL are big in a lot of cases. Is he going to be able to handle that? We'll see. I think so. But, it hasn't been officially announced yet, but I'm really curious to see what Chris Richards does at Crystal Palace. When he's been healthy, he was an every game starter at Hoffenheim. Bayern liked him, but he wanted, to be playing every week. Palace, has some pretty good center backs on the squad. So if he's able to kind of break in there, I like the fit with Patrick Vieira. I like the fit with him in the Premier League. I think he'll be starting for the US in Qatar. And I think he's got a chance to really raise his profile here over the next 4 or 5 months.
Okay. I will leave it at that. Sam, thank you so much for coming on, taking time. I know you have to hop on a call, so I will let you go. I seriously appreciate it and hope we can chat again soon.
Absolutely. This was a lot of fun. Thanks, man.
Awesome. Thank you.